Hello there. So I wanted to talk a bit about perspective. How we look at the world and how we look at our life is incredibly important. Um, we can fail to see the world around us. We can be solely focused upon the problem or that which is directly in front of us. And we can become overwhelmed by it, weighed down by it, oppressed by it. And so it occurred to me one day, sitting in my cell, I'd read all the books I could read and written all the letters I could write, done all the things I could do, really. I'd meditated, I'd stayed in the moment, but I needed something to change. And it's a maxim that if you cannot change your situation, then you have little choice but to change yourself. Changing yourself takes time, it takes practice, it takes repetition. I often see people do these positive affirmations, and my gut instinct is to say, what a load of crap. But then when I think about it, it's the repetition of that affirmation that slowly sinks into the subconscious so that you begin to think like the affirmation. Now, it's not something I personally do, but I can see the merit in it. However, for me, perspective is the most important thing. Locked in a prison cell, you are surrounded by four walls, a floor, and a ceiling. Yes, there's a television these days. Personally, I think it's a bad thing. It's kind of like a brain dead box for the masses. You know, you sit, you stare, you consume, you don't engage, you don't really think critically. It's a one-way street. At least with the radio, you tend to think a little. Looking at the walls around me, I began to feel very claustrophobic. It was a new feeling. I'd never felt claustrophobia before in prison. Um, and it didn't frighten so much as overwhelm. It was this crushing dead weight upon my soul that this was my life, quite possibly till the day I die. And I needed to change the environment in which I was. Now, if I couldn't take my body out of the cell, I had to place that cell in a different context. And so I started asking myself some very basic questions. Where am I? Well, I'm in a prison cell. Okay, so I'm in a cell, and where is that cell? Well, it's in the prison, obviously. And if I were to move 5 miles in any direction, what would I see possibly? Well, would I see woodland? Would I see a river? Would I see a stream? Would I see houses, schools, apartment blocks, council estates, private golf courses? And suddenly you're not in jail anymore. You're thinking, you're engaging your mind, your creative mind, your inquiring mind, and you're beginning to look at the world differently. And I went a little further and a little further, and now I'm at the ocean. So what lives in the ocean? Well, right now I know there are whales in the ocean, there are sharks in the ocean, there are ships on the ocean, there are sailing boats on the ocean, there are fishing boats on the ocean, there are fish, there are coral reefs, there are storms, there are calm waters. So I begin to imagine a whale swimming serenely under the water, and then comes the whale song. And I'm no longer in a prison cell. I'm somewhere under the ocean. And for a few minutes at least, my brain is engaging with an environment totally different to the one in which it's in. And so I kept going. I travelled different countries and continents, landmarks, places I've been on holiday or on business or travelling. I started to visit the areas in which friends lived or previous girlfriends, different countries, different foods, different wine, different cultures. The opera in Italy, the canals in Venice, maybe the canal in Amsterdam, and the shops in Paris, the sea in Spain or the south of France, the Eiffel Tower. And you engage, and you engage, and you engage. You analyse the world in which you live, even if you can't be a part of it. And then I went further. Okay, I said, so I'm on this planet. I share this planet with you and 8 billion other people. And I start to see the planet from space, low orbit, a beautiful blue jewel in the black sky. Completely and utterly overwhelmingly stunning. When you look at creation from that perspective, that vantage point, it's difficult not to become overwhelmed by the beauty, the scale, the magnitude, and actually the utter silence of space. Okay, so I'm on this planet. I zoom out, maybe to the surface of the moon, looking back at the Earth. It's hanging in the night sky, completely absorbed in the beauty of it. I can see the continents and the countries. I think to myself, my God, there's 8 billion people down there living their lives. And amongst them is me in my prison cell, but I'm not really thinking about that right now. And I start to track the planet, our planet, Earth, amongst other planets in the solar system. They're there, they're actually there, right now. If you could travel, you could touch them. The surface of Mars, the boiling atmosphere of Venus, Mercury, spinning around the sun, the messenger of the gods, Jupiter, enormous gas giant, with all its moons. And then I fast forward in time, and I watch our planet zoom around the sun, 93 million miles away, our star, from which the whole of life originates. And so I'm no longer in a prison cell, or on a continent, or in the ocean. I'm watching the planet that we call home circumnavigate the stars, and it dawns on me that we are part of a greater whole. That this clockwork mechanism of the orbiting planet around the sun has been going on for billions of years, and it will continue to go on for billions of years. And that certainty gives me a sense of peace, that actually, even when I'm not here, this miracle will continue without me quite happily. And so I begin to drift outwards from the stars, and I go to other galaxies, the universe. Can you imagine a thing so vast, so seemingly infinite? The heavens above stretching just above my prison cell, stretching into infinity. So I'm not really trapped in my cell anymore. Yeah, my cell is a place fixed in time and space, but that space and time is relative. And in 1,000 years, this prison won't exist. This place where I sit now will maybe be a field or a farm or under the ocean. And the perspective, the vantage point continues to change continuously. And so the point I'm trying to make is this. Even when you are overwhelmingly oppressed by life, or life's troubles or difficulties, taking a step back, looking at something beyond that which is immediately in front of you can be enormously helpful. Even if shift is your gaze for just a few minutes, it takes you away from that problem, takes you away from the immediate concern. It helps you to see things in a bigger light, perhaps. And so for me, the problems I have, the problems I had, they all need to be put into perspective of a bigger, grander picture. And when you consider the gas bill compared to the magnitude of an orbiting planet around its star, and the infinite nature of the universe, it's suddenly more difficult to be overwhelmed by it. It's not to say the problem doesn't exist, just that you need to change its magnitude, its impact upon your life. And if you can change the way you look at the world, you can change the way it impacts upon you. And that's all I really have to say. It helped me survive what I thought was something unendurable. Moments of hell, just time, standing still. And I needed to change that perspective, and I'm so glad I did, because it got me through some very difficult times. I hope you've enjoyed this short film. I hope you've got something from what I had to say. It's not rocket science. Maybe we just need reminding once in a while. My name's Matt. Thank you for watching. See you soon.